forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March. For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk, and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger 10. Here's Steve Dace.
Greetings. Welcome to another week of Bigger 10. I'm Steve Dace alongside my co-host, not partner, the one and only Aaron McIntyre. Good to see you, and you're back to looking mighty white, brother. How are you?
Something about having a kid and not getting out on the bicycle. And, I had a really nice farmer's tan this year.
Yeah.
That's gone.
I thought you were just getting your Dracula on now that we're in the spooky season. It's almost Halloween, right?
That's true.
Getting your Nosferatu look going for the fall.
Yeah, there's actually
your
more
auto
rewards
motif.
to being translucent.
There you go. Yes. All right, so a ton going on with Big Ten athletics. Let's get to it with our Big Five here on Bigger 10. And could this be the Big Ten game of the year? Penn State and Iowa, two of the top three scoring defenses in the country. Only Georgia from the SEC ranks better. Two of the top five teams in the country. This is the first time there will be a meeting of top five teams in our league not named Michigan or Ohio State. Well, I mean, first of all, we haven't had one with anybody in our league since 1997, without Ohio State, I should say. But the last time we had one without Michigan and Ohio State, 1962, when number 3 Wisconsin beat number 5 Minnesota for the Axe, 14-9. First time for that Iowa has been in a game of top 5 foes since one of the great games of my childhood. Number 1 Iowa, number 2 Michigan, October 19th, 1985. Rob Houtland with the game-winning kick that broke our hearts for the Maize and Blue. One of my buddies in high school, Dan Henriksen. His buddy Jerry, or his dad Jerry, was the referee in that game, by the way. So Dan, if you're watching, shout out, brother. So this is some high cotton for your Iowa Hawkeyes. Penn State comes in, however, with just James Franklin has just as dismal of a record on the road against ranked teams as Jim Harbaugh. But because he beat Ohio State once, nobody talks about it. His only win on the road against a ranked team was against your Iowa Hawkeyes 2 years ago at night. So how do you see this one? Two teams that look a lot like each other.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game, that's for sure. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, it's obviously two top 4 teams. That's going to be very entertaining. I just think for my Hawkeyes, though, a key is going to be getting up early in the game, even if it's by a field goal. But if they can get up by 7 or 10 points, make it a 2-possession game, and make Penn State play a certain type of way, Iowa's strength in its defense is definitely in the back 7. Although their defensive line is really, really coming along this year compared to where they were in the, just the first couple of games. So I think it'll be an entertaining game. I'm just not quite sure where either team will find the offense. Iowa finally did what it was hoping to do against a bad defense in Maryland, in actually taking the ball to them, or taking the fight to them. That's something we hadn't seen against Kent State or Colorado State, two defenses that Iowa fans were kind of looking forward to getting right games offensively against them. So I'm not really sure though what they're going to be like against a higher caliber defense. I'm hoping what we saw last week, at least in some ways, is replicatable. Some of the passes, though, and this is what I've been talking about with Spencer Petras, it really is coming down to the offensive line and the blocking that they give to him. I mean, there is one area that Spencer Petras has to get better at, and that's taking terrible sacks. He's just got to get better at throwing the ball away. That's kind of a big deal. But when he has a good platform and a clean pocket to throw from, my goodness, the guy has touch and accuracy that I have not seen from an Iowa quarterback maybe since Ricky Stanzi, and even him. I mean, he was like 50-50 in interceptions to a touchdown ratio. So I think maybe Iowa offensively has some things to build upon. Penn State, really not quite sure what their identity on offense is, other than let's have Sean Clifford go make a play one way or another. That's kind of seems to be their identity. They ran a little bit better against Indiana, but overall this season, their running game on offense has not been good. But again, last week you saw the bet that I made on the Michigan-Wisconsin game. Everybody and their mother's dog expected that to be a slobber knocker. Everybody and their mother's dog had Wisconsin in the under, so I picked Michigan money line and the over, and that's what happened. So it might be one of those games where you expect a 6-4 rock fight, which we've seen from Iowa and Penn State before, and it ends up being a little bit more of an air it out type of game. Although I think that the possibilities of that are lessened because of Iowa's strength in its defense, which is in its secondary. So going to be a really, really interesting, entertaining game. I'm just not sure where the offense is going to come from. I think it's going to depend on who gets up first and who can start kind of putting the other team down and sitting on them a little bit.
One thing I'll say from the Penn State perspective, I mean, this is just a universal truism in football in general, but I think it's really important against Iowa to present a consistent threat in the running game so that you are throwing when you want to and not when you have to, when they know it's coming. Because the way it's going, Iowa's had now 3 games this year with at least 3 interceptions. In other words, when
that's not just luck at this point.
No, it's not. When you drop back to pass, Iowa's defense is on offense. All right, you want to pass when you want to, so that it's a play action pass, so that you're now their coverages are not setting the terms and conditions of the transaction here. And so I think the ability to have some form of a consistent run game is really important for Penn State, so that they're throwing the ball at a play action more so than on third down. Let's go to what's already happened in the last week of Big Ten action. So on Michigan podcast here on the channel, we already broke down Michigan's pummeling of Wisconsin from a Michigan perspective for an entire episode. I mean, obviously I do all the talking on that one. So if you have something you want to say, Aaron, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I think here maybe it's time to look at this from a Wisconsin angle. And where is this team at? I told you I was really in an odd place going into the year because ever since I've been doing my team total composite talent ratings, I've always had Wisconsin's roster lower than the market. And I've been wrong every year. This was the one year that I had Wisconsin's roster higher than the market. I'm going to be wrong again. They're 1-3. They may very well already be out of the Big Ten race with the way Iowa is playing. And you have to wonder, given the expectations of where they were at the start of the year, remember that team was at 2018. That team was preseason number 4 in the AP poll and went 7-5. You know, and so Ken Paul Chryst, he's now begging fans to come after him, leave the players alone. Folks, that defense, I still think that might overall be the best defense in our entire league. I think it's absolutely the best defensive front 7 in our league. I mean, they give you absolutely nothing. But they're hung out to dry week after week after week. So where's Wisconsin at now heading into the rest of the season for them?
They're a typical Iowa team without an all-world running back like Jonathan Taylor. They're what I watch most years with Iowa, barring special seasons, which this seems to be so far. It could always turn around. Barring special seasons, the term leaving your defense hanging out to dry, I mean, that's Tuesday. most times watching Iowa football, you're seeing what Wisconsin really, really needs, which is a quarterback that will not lose you the game, which they do not have right now. I mean, you could make an argument. I don't know if it's a very good argument. You can make an argument that Graham Mertz has lost them every single game that they've lost so far this year.
Yeah.
And what happens when you don't have an all-world running back, which Wisconsin just had a string of those for darn near 20 years, the better part of 20 years. They had somebody in their backfield that could really, really make up the difference of having a deficient quarterback or a deficient outside passing game. And they just don't have that. And so their defense, as good as it is being put in positions where they really cannot win, where they really have to have the game come to them instead of them taking the game to the other, to the opponent. And so I think that's where Wisconsin, they're kind of trapped right now until their offense and the one position on the entire team that you can't hide, which you always say is the quarterback, until they start to improve over there. And until that happens, they're going to have a great defense. They'll win games where they're heavily favored, but in close games that come down to quarterback play, Graham Mertz, he ain't it. He ain't it so far.
I think you bring up an excellent point with the lack of the marquee running back. And if you go back to their original breakthrough under Barry Alvarez in 1993, you had Brent Moss, you've had James White, you've had Anthony Davis, you've had Melvin Gordon, you've had Ron Dane win a Heisman Trophy as college football's all-time leading rusher. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. I wonder if their offensive line's getting a bad rap. And it's not so much that they're not up to normal snuff. It's just that when you have a one-cut take you to the house back like a Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor, anybody takes a bad angle, and those guys are housing you. And they make your offensive line. I mean, it's not like the NFL is littered with Pro Bowl offensive linemen from Wisconsin right now. So I wonder if how much of this was incredible talent at running back made pretty good offensive lines look like they were all world now. And so now what they've done is they've inverted the paradigm of their program. They don't have that. They went out and got themselves a borderline 5-star QB, the highest rated quarterback recruit they've ever had. He hasn't developed the way they've wanted to. They mortgaged the future with him. They let Jack Cohn go and everything else. And now they're trying to run a paradigm that they're just not prepared for. They don't have great talent on the outside at receiver, gaining a bunch of separation. So you know a lot about this as an Iowa fan. A quarterback who holds onto the ball too long, guys don't get open, they gang up on you. And this is why even in years where Iowa's won 9 or 10 games, they've been like 95th in the nation in total offense, right? So you get this. I don't know that Wisconsin fan has seen this in many, many a moon, where they don't have an all-world tailback. And so I don't have to play you honest. I can pin my ears back and come after you every single down, regardless of down and distance. I then pressure the quarterback. I hit him early on, which then shakes that quarterback's confidence. And then this vicious cycle just kind of repeats itself. Yep. All this blame is coming down on Graham Mertz. He has not been good. I'm not saying he's not. But I think maybe the real issue ought to be you've got to go back to the basics of your identity. So similar to what we just said about Penn State. Right now, Wisconsin's throwing a lot when they have to, as opposed to a lot out of a play-action game that is available because of the way you're running the football. They got to kind of go back to being Wisconsin again.
Yep, and as you've said, and I'll repeat it, and I just did a little bit ago, you can't hide your quarterback in college football, but having an all-world tailback covers a multitude of sins in a way that an all-world wide receiver or an all-world left tackle or an all-world defensive tackle cannot do, because in a pro-style offense like Wisconsin plays, other than the quarterback in the center who's probably touching the ball the most, it's going to be your tailback. And if you have to have an extra guy to respect that's getting the ball a lot, then it frees up a lot of other things in your offense. And right now, Wisconsin doesn't have that. And they are experiencing the offensive misery that Iowa fan has had to experience for basically the entirety, maybe 19 out of the 21, 22 years that Kirk Ferentz has been at the helm.
Let's stick with the Big Ten West. Let's go to Nebraska. Outrushing Northwestern by 400 yards. I mean, that's a stat out of 1978, Big 2, Michigan, Ohio State, Little 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we expected Northwestern to have issues on offense. I texted you that opening Thursday or Friday night when they were playing Michigan State. Boy, watching Walker just run over that defense. Boy, Northwestern has issues on defense too.
Remember the very first play of the season.
Yeah.
Bad run fit. And Kenneth Walker just runs to the outside like it's a high school game, and I'm bigger and faster than anybody else. And I just run to the outside and run down the sideline for a score. Very first play, not a lot was made in the offseason about Northwestern losing its outstanding defensive coordinator. Because a lot of times when you lose a great coordinator from the side of the ball that the head coach is good on, it ends up not being that much of a huge difference, right? I mean, Alabama's losing defensive coordinators every couple of years, but you got Nick Saban there. Mm-hmm. Luke Fickell at Cincinnati just lost a fantastic defensive coordinator to Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, right? But that's also his side of the ball, and he was a hell of a defensive coordinator himself. Boy, even though this is Pat Fitzgerald's side of the ball, I mean, I would imagine dude has slept like no nights this week, being outrushed by 400 yards. Because that is 1980s era Northwestern stuff. That's having your manhood taken from you. I hate to say this because I'm a Pat Fitzgerald man crush dude, but that kind of has the Q word kind of written all over it, if you know what I'm saying. Like I quit, and we're just not used to seeing that. Even Northwestern's bad. They'll throw the cleats, cheerleaders, everything at you. They still might lose 28-10 at the end of the game, but they don't stop fighting. I think you also got to give some credit to Nebraska there too, obviously too. Out-rushing a team by 400 yards. If you look at the way they played the last few weeks, I don't know, brother. You think my Wolverines are walking into an ambush there in Lincoln on Saturday night?
Well, we'll wait and talk about that for our pick segment tomorrow, coming out on the channel tomorrow. But I would just say for Nebraska fans, as much fun as I make of them and picked against them, that had to have been cathartic, not to mention for Nebraska fans, but the team itself, after being almost there a couple of times, just in just excruciating fashion this year alone, and under the Scott Frost era, being able to actually get over the hump in a Big Ten game, even if it is against lowly Northwestern, be able to have a little bit of catharsis there has got to be feeling good for them. And I do think Michigan is in for a little bit more of a challenge. That place is going to be lit, just absolutely on fire on Saturday night. So I think if Michigan can withstand the first quarter blow, I think they'll be okay. But if Nebraska gets up by a couple of scores somehow, some way, look out.
Speaking of the aforementioned Michigan State Spartans, brother, it is the second week of October. Well, actually, first week of October. Michigan State's already exceeded its preseason win total.
Took care of business against Western Kentucky.
Give it up. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm wearing the brand on Bigger 10 this week, so I do this begrudgingly, man, but I got to tip the cap. They had a win total preseason of 4.5. They're 5-0. Now, I don't think Peyton Thorne's going to end up with these kinds of numbers, but 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kenneth Walker, one of the leading rushers in the country. Now, you look at their schedule in a lot of power ratings or Sagarin ratings. Nebraska's their best win. They're, I think, 23rd or 25th in a lot of those power ratings right now, and they got outgained by 200 yards and still won. It doesn't matter. If your preseason win total was 4.5 and you have already exceeded it here and it's October the 6th, you got to give Sparty some props, man. And I hate to say it, but they earned it. Absolutely they did. And, they unless you lose every single game from here on out, win one more game, and in year 2 you're going to a bowl game under Mel Tucker, and that's pretty good. And if you can win the majority of your games, might be going to a fairly good bowl game as well, which bowl games don't really mean anything anymore, but still, it's still a marker of program success, and it's not really something we expected to see. At least I expected to see, and they should be pretty happy over there in East Lansing. We'll see. Again, if this is repeatable, but so far 5 for 5. I mean, you can't get it. You literally cannot get any better than that. So, hats off to Michigan State and Sparty. And I don't know. If this is actually, if they show up to play, if they can get one of the 3, Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan, if they can get one of those 3, I think that division is in a place this year where that might be good enough. Do you think 7-2 could maybe win the division? Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I think it's possible. Right now everybody's all impressed with Ohio State back on track, but all Ohio State's doing right now is blitzkrieging teams. They have a lot more talent then. Yep. So let's see again when they play a game against a Penn State, a Michigan State. Of course, they won't be playing Michigan this year, but let's see when they play Penn State or Michigan State, and they can stand up to them at the line of scrimmage. Let's see what happens. Okay. Finally, a public service announcement. This needs to stop. I'm watching the Penn State Indiana game Saturday night. The ABC broadcast crew is talking about, and I quote, enjoying a socially distanced dinner, end quote. The night before they broadcast at Beaver Stadium with over 100,000 fans packed in there like sardines. Can we please make this dumbass virtue signaling? It's insulting. Can we please make it stop? I get wanting to send home your virtue signaling message when you're last year and there's no fans in the stands, and hey, we went to dinner but we're socially distanced. Because you also want to be sensitive to people that are still kind of doing stay-at-home orders, maybe can't go out to dinner right now, right? You don't want to come off as an elitist rubbing their noses in it, right? Okay, fine. But can we please end this was our socially distanced dinner while you're broadcasting live from a stadium that has 100,000 fans literally dry humping each other? Can this please? It's insulting. It's vomit in your mouth inducing. Can it please stop?
Yeah, I've already made it stop, actually. I think, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, I have heard maybe 3 to 5 minutes of television play-by-play and color commentary this year, because I've had the sound system and TV turned down almost the entire day, just so as to not disturb and or wake up the boy.
Nice.
So I've already made it stop in my household, so I don't really have any complaints.
Yeah. The problem is I just went out and bought a very expensive sound system before the season. So
you can hear it especially well.
Yeah. And then I feel bad if I mute it because then I feel like I just wasted my money. But that's not a bad play. All right, we'll come back. Play our weekly game of Would You Rather here on Bigger 10 next. Time for Would You Rather here on Bigger 10, brought to you by DraftKings. You know, another week of the NFL season means another shot to win big at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores even one single point. And by the way, folks, the last 0-0 tie in the NFL was in 1943. So I think you're in pretty good shape, okay? Also, remember that you can combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. These are called same-game parlays. And that DraftKings is a safe, secure, and reliable place to put your money. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code BIGGER10. Bet just $1. That's all one word, by the way. Bigger 10, all one word. Bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores even a single point. That's promo code BIGGER10, all one word, BIGGER10, this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And remember, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Gambling Disorder Helpline at 800-270-7117, 21 and older, Michigan only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full terms and conditions. All right, Aaron, we begin with this one for you. Would you rather have a socially distanced dinner the night before a Big Ten football game or wear a useless Chinese face diaper at a Big Ten basketball game this winter?
This one's pretty easy. I'd rather have a socially distanced dinner before the night before a Big Ten football game. Generally speaking, on the weekends, I don't really like seeing people too much. So you didn't say I had to be around people. Socially distanced.
Although if they're masked up, you're only going to see half of them,
I could
right?
be out standing in my field and enjoying a dinner out there and be socially distanced. You didn't really define that super well, so that's not much of a contest.
I can confess, you've worked for me for how many years now? Has it been 6 years, 6.5 years?
Yeah, coming up on 6 years.
I don't think I've ever seen you on a weekend. Like he socially distances on a weekend from like the universe. Yeah, so yes,
that's true.
Yeah.
Next one is for you. Would you rather be Paul Chryst or PJ Fleck right now?
I think I'd rather be PJ Fleck right now. I had a nice get right win. I had to challenge my team culturally after that humiliating loss to Bowling Green. They come right back, went on the road at Purdue. I don't think Purdue's great, but it's still a road venue in the Big Ten in front of a packed house. And you know, that was probably the low mark of his entire program, was losing that game. That's the first FBS win for Bowling Green since 2019. It's one of the biggest upsets in the non-conference in the history of Big Ten football. They were 31-point favorites. And so now you got your guys back rowing the boat together. If you're Paul Chryst right now, I mean, you're begging your fan base to come at you and leave the kids alone. You don't know if Graham Mertz is going to be available to play quarterback with those bruised ribs that had him in the hospital. You lost your star tight end, Travis Ferguson. You don't have a star tailback right now. You've got a lot of guys. This was a very experienced team, and these guys had very high expectations coming back. You're going to a place where you just lost on your last visit there under the old regime, and now you're facing your old coach. You're facing some existential questions. And by the way, maybe Wisconsin, as much as I love Barry Alvarez, needs to stop celebrating Barry Alvarez. at Camp Randall.
Kidding.
They've done it twice and lost both times. His final home game in 2005, they did it against your Hawkeyes and lost. It was Barry Alvarez Day against my Wolverines. They renamed the field after him and they lost.
And by pretty big margins both times.
Yeah. So if right now if I'm PJ Fleck, it might just be my team's not great, but at least they're still playing together. Okay. If I'm Wisconsin, it might be that my team's pretty good, but they're not playing together. And I think that's a tougher hill for a coach to climb, especially in the middle of a season. All right, for you, would you rather be Wisconsin or Indiana trying to rally your team in the second half of the season after disappointing preseason expectations?
Well, first of all, I'll be honest with you. I didn't even read this question before I punched it in here, which is why the last two have been so similar. So a little look behind the curtains at the high amount of rigor that goes into producing this here show. But I would rather be Indiana, trying to rally the team. I think there are more opportunities in the Eastern Division to have a signature win this season than there is in the West. Wisconsin in the West. You basically have Iowa. That's going to be your Super Bowl, your chance to get your get right win on the season. What other win are you celebrating in the West Division? Woohoo, we beat Illinois. Woohoo, we beat Nebraska. Okay, maybe. Woohoo, we beat Minnesota. Woohoo, we beat Northwestern. None of those things do anything to move the needle of probably your team and your fan base. I think if you're Indiana, you knock off Michigan, you knock off Penn State, you knock off Ohio State. One of those three, hey, or Michigan State, heck, that's a pretty good thing that you can maybe build upon this season. So I'd rather be Indiana. There may not be the division to play for at this point. You never know, but may not be to the division to play for. But there are some pretty big wins that you can still play for in that division that you can build upon. Final one is for you. Would you rather bet Nebraska money line this weekend or Rutgers money line?
I would rather bet Rutgers money line. And when it comes to money, man, I could care less what the names of the teams are. You know that. And I'll often, by the way, bet against my favorite team just so if they lose, the money cushions the blow.
Yep.
But the reason why I would bet, and I don't think, by the way, betting Nebraska money line is a bad bet. I would not bet Nebraska plus 3.5. I would bet either Michigan to lay the points or I'd bet Nebraska money line.
Value.
Yes. But the Michigan-Nebraska game is a matchup of a team that has played maybe the cleanest football in the country so far this season, both in terms of penalties and turnovers, against a team that is known for committing lots of both. And this is actually a game where maybe I think Michigan Harbaugh's stubbornness at times works to their favor because he is going to stick with his game plan even if it goes well into the fourth quarter, and still wait for Nebraska to make that one mistake. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The Rutgers-Michigan State game is a big revenge game for Michigan State, but Rutgers is also reeling after losing to Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back weeks. This is a chance for them to get back on the winning track. They're at home. They'll have a huge crowd. There's still some questions about how good Michigan State is as a whole. Their analytics really aren't great. Their strength of schedule really isn't great. In fact, Rutgers has played a better strength of schedule. So I would rather bet Rutgers money line, but I also don't think it's a huge, I don't think it's like a 70-30 proposition. It might be more like 55-45 for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bet Rutgers money line this weekend, actually. That's why I asked.
Okay. We'll come back, wrap things up with our feedback of the week and this week's Twitter poll next. This week's Twitter poll, we asked all of you, Iowa hosts Penn State in the Big Ten game of the year so far this season. A battle of top 5 teams. Will they have a rematch in the Big Ten championship game 2 months from now? 66.8% of you voted no. Only 1/3 of you voted yes. How would you have voted on that, Aaron? You can see I voted no. How would you have voted?
No as well. I just think there are too many.
I think there's too many variants in the East.
Variants in the East right now.
How about right now, if it's Michigan and Iowa in the Big Ten championship game? The Christmas bonuses the company pays you and me this year is we're going to that game.
Oh, that would be fun.
What do you think?
That would be a lot of fun.
And make sure we get like real seats and and that will be Christmas bonuses from for you and I
Are we
this
driving
year.
there or flying?
You know, I've driven to Indianapolis before. It's where I took my bachelor party for the Final Four there.
Yeah.
It's only about a 6-hour drive. The only problem is it's early December, and so you don't know what the road conditions might be.
I'm just thinking a 6-hour drive, one of us coming back, losing. That might be hard.
See, I'm thinking flying back, 3 delays after
True.
losing, harder.
You could have driven
Then
there
put
and
on a
back
mask.
5 times.
Yeah, then put on a mask. Yeah. I'm thinking harder.
Yeah, that's true.
But I hear you. All right, this week's feedback of the week. UI Hawk grad says, I think Iowa will be there, but Penn State still has Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. If Iowa beats Penn State next Saturday, it'll be that much more difficult for the Nittany Lions. Well, that's kind of a itemization of what you and I were just talking about.
Yep.
So good take. All right, we'll come back again next week with more right here on Bigger 10. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Bigger 10, particularly on game day. We keep you up to date with in real time takes on what's going on with all things Big 10. You can also like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, follow, what have you. Well, then you have like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, etc. Please do all of those things for us, regardless of how you access us, whether it's right here on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. Help us to find more and more Big Ten fans just like you. For Aaron McIntyre, I'm Steve Dace. We'll see you next week right here on Bigger 10.